Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Storytime with Moog. I am Moog, and today we are reading The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. We're picking up where we left off. We left off in the middle. No, not even the middle. We left off amidst a chapter. Whoopsie. But first, so let's just let's just go. So today we are reading The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. It was added to the public domain January 1st, 2025. So basically hot off the press. And we are on the second part, the second day, which is June 2nd, 1910. And this is a difficult read. So I put the first part in Discord, like the summary of it, and it had like explanations of things as well. I'll do that for the second part as well. We will finish the second part today and go on into the third one. So I'll do that for that as well. But there is a lot of like stylistic things that make this read a little bit difficult. Even just like reading it by yourself type of a deal. But reading it out loud is also very difficult for a number of reasons. There's dialect, which I'm more familiar with, like American dialect. So like the Southern accents that are written in the book are less upsetting for me than like other accents that happen outside of the US just because of my familiarity with them. But also, the narrator is constantly switching, and there is not very bright indications of the change, as well as the style is stream of conscience. So like the sentences are basically just really, really long run-on sentences, and you have to find when to take a break and when one thought leads into the next thought. And so like reading it out loud is a little bit difficult. So if you see me struggling, or you think like, wow, she is struggling, it's because I am. It's because I am. Not that I'm not enjoying the story, it's just difficult to read out loud. But that having been said, we're going to keep reading it because I am enjoying the story, and I very much am going to, I haven't looked at them yet, but I am going to go back and look at the summaries just because I myself am curious. So yes, that's my like disclaimer. If it looks like she's struggling, she is. Be kind. Okay, where we left off, I'm just going to say like the exact part where we left off instead of doing like a full-on recap. But where we left off is Quentin has been picked up by the police, and so now he is going to go talk to like the squire and the people at the station. That's what is happening in this immediate scene. All right. Here we go. He opened a huge, dusty book and drew it to him and dipped a foul pen into an inkwell filled with what looked like coal dust. "Look here, mister," Sharif said. "The prisoner's name," the squire said. I told him. He wrote it slowly into the book, the pen scratching with excruciating deliberation. "Look here, mister," Sharif said. "We know this fellow. We—" "Order in the court," Anne said. "Shut up, bud," Spode said. "Let him do it his way. He's going to anyhow." "Age," the squire said. I told him. He wrote that, his mouth moving as he wrote. "Occupation," I told him. "Harvard student, eh?" he said. He looked up at me, bowing his neck a little to see over the spectacles. His eyes were clear and cold, like a goat's. "What are you up to? Coming out there kidnapping children?" "They're crazy, Squire," Shreve said. "Whoever says this boy's kidnapping..." Julio moved violently. "Crazy," he said. Don't I catch him? Don't I catch him? Eh? Don't I see with my own eyes?" "You're a liar," Shriva said. You never..." Order, Hans said, raising his voice. "You fellers shut up," the squire said. "If they don't stay quiet, turn 'em out, Ants." They got quiet. The squire looked at Shreve, then at Spode, then at Gerald. "You know this young man?" he said to Spode. Yes, Your Honor," Spode said. "He's just a country boy in school up there. He don't mean any harm. I think the marshal will find it's a mistake. His father's a congregational minister." The squire said. "What are you doing, exactly?" I told him. He watching me with his cold, pale eyes. How about it, Ants?" "Might have been," Ants said. "Them dern foreigners. Them dern foreigners." "I American," Julio said. "I got the paper." "Where's the gal?" "He sent her home," Ants said. "Was she scared or anything?" "Not till Julio there jumped on the prisoner. They were just talking along the river path towards town. Some boys swimming told us which way they went." "It's a mistake, Squire," Spode said. "Children and dogs are always taken up with him like that. He can't help it." The squire said. He looked out of the window for a while. We watched him. I could hear Julio scratching himself. The squire looked back. "Are you satisfied the gal ain't took any hurt? You there?" "No hurt now," Julio said, sullenly. "You quit work to hunt for her?" "Sure, I quit. I run like hell. Look a here, look a there. Then man tellin' me he seen him give a her she eat. She go with him." The squire said. "Well, son, I calculate you owe Julio something for taking him away from his work." "Yes, sir," I said. "How much?" $1, I calculate." I gave Julio $1. "Well," Spode said, "if that's all, I reckon he's discharged, Your Honor." The squire didn't look at him. "How far do you run him, Ants?" 2 miles, at least. It was about 2 miles before we caught him." The squire said. He mused a while. He watched him, his stiff crest, the spectacles riding low on his nose. The yellow shape of the window grew slowly across the floor, reached the wall, climbing. Dust motes whirled and slanted. $6. $6, Shreve said. "What's that for?" $6, the squire said. He looked at Shreve a moment, then at me again. "Look here," Shreve said. "Shut up," Spode said. "Give it to him, bud, and let's get out of here. The ladies are waiting for us. You got $6? "Yes," I said. I gave him $6. "Case dismissed," he said. "You get a receipt?" Shreve said. "You get a signed receipt for that money." The squire looked at Shreve mildly. "Case dismissed," he said, without raising his voice. "I'll be damned," Shreve said. "Come on here," Spode said, taking his arm. "Good afternoon, Judge. Much obliged." As we passed out the door, Julio's voice rose again, violent, then ceased. Spode was looking at me, his brown eyes quizzical, a little cold. "Well, bud, I reckon you'll do your girl chasing in Boston after this." "You damned fool," Shreve said. "What the hell do you mean anyway, straggling off here, fooling with these damn..." "Come on," Spode said. "They must be getting impatient." Mrs. Bland was talking to them. They were Miss Holmes and Miss Dangerfield, and they quit listening to her and looking at me again with that delicate and curious horror, their veils turned back upon their little white noses, and their eyes fleeing and mysterious beneath the veils. "Quentin Compson," Mrs. Bland said. What would your mother say? A young man naturally gets into scrapes, but to be arrested on foot by a country policeman? What did they think he'd done, Gerald? Nothing, Gerald said. Nonsense. What was it? You, Spode? He was trying to kidnap that little dirty girl, but they caught him in time, Spode said. Nonsense, Mrs. Bland said. But her voice sort of died away, and she stared at me for a moment, and the girls drew their breaths in with a soft, concerted sound. Fiddlesticks, Mrs. Bland said briefly. If that isn't just like these ignorant, low-class Yankees. Get in, Quentin. Shreve and I sat on 2 small collapsible seats. Gerald cranked the car and got in, and we started. Now, Quentin, you tell me what all this foolishness is about, Mrs. Bland said. I told them. Shreve hunched and furious on his little seat, and Spode sitting again on the back with his neck beside Mrs. Dangerfield. And the joke is, all this time Quentin had us all fooled, Spode said. All the time we thought he was the model youth that anybody could trust a daughter with, until a police showed him up at his nefarious work. Hush up, Spode, Mrs. Bland said. We drove down the street and crossed the bridge and past the house where the pink garment hung in the window. That's what you get for not reading my note. Why didn't you come and get it? Mr. Mackenzie says he told you it was there. Yes'm, I intended to, but I never went back to the room. You'd have to let us sit there waiting. I don't know how long if it hadn't been for Mr. Mackenzie. When you said you hadn't come back, that left an extra place, so we asked him to come. You're very glad to have you anyway, Mr. Mackenzie, Shreve said. Shreve said nothing. His arms were folded, and he glared straight ahead past Gerald's cap. It was a cap for motoring in England. Mrs. Bland said so. We passed that house, and 3 others, and in another yard where the little girl stood by the gate. She didn't have the bread now, and her face looked like it had been streaked with coal dust. I waved my hand, but she made no reply, only her head turned slowly as the car passed, following us with her unwinking gaze. Then we ran beside the wall, our shadows running along the wall, and after a while we passed a piece of torn newspaper lying beside the road, and I began to laugh again. I could feel it in my throat, and I looked off into the trees where the afternoon slanted, thinking of afternoon and of the bird and the boys in swimming. But still, I couldn't stop it. And then I knew that if I tried too hard to stop it, I'd be crying, and I thought about how I'd thought about I could not be a virgin, and so many of them walking along the shadows and whispering with their soft girl voices lingering in the shadowy places, and the words coming out in perfume and eyes you could feel, not see. But if it was that simple to do, it wouldn't be anything, and if it wasn't anything, what was I? And then Mrs. Bland said, Quentin, is he sick, Mr. Mackenzie? And then Shreve's fat hand touched my knee, and Spode began talking, and I quit trying to stop it. If that hamper is in his way, Mr. Mackenzie, move it on over to your side. I brought a hamper of wine because I think young gentlemen should drink wine, although my father, Gerald's grandfather, ever do that? Have you ever done that in the gray darkness? A little light, her hands looked out. They do, when they can get it, Spode said. Hey, Shreve. Her knees, her face looking at the sky, the smell of honeysuckle upon her face and throat. Beer, too, Shreve said. His hand touched my knee again. I moved my knee again, like a thin wash of lilac-colored paint, talking about him bringing. You're not a gentleman, Spode said, him between us until the shape of her blurred out, not with darkness. No, I'm Canadian, Shreve said, talking about him, the oar blades winking him along, winking the cap made for motoring in England and all-time rushing beneath, and they two blurred within the other. Forevermore he had been in the army, had killed men. I adore Canada, Miss Dangerfield said. I think it's marvelous. Do you ever drink perfume? Spode said. With one hand he could lift her to the shoulders and run with her, running. No, Shreve said. Running the beast with two backs, and she blurred in the winking oars, running the swine of Ebolus, running, coupled within how many catty? Neither did I, Spode said. I don't know. Too many. There was something terrible in me. Father, I have committed. Have you ever done that? We didn't do that. Did we do that? And Gerald's grandfather always picked his own mint before breakfast while the dew was still on it. He wouldn't even let old Wilkie touch it. Do you remember Gerald, but always gathered it by himself and made his own julep? He was as crotchety about his julep as any old maid, measuring anything by a recipe in his head. There was only one man he ever gave that recipe to. That was, we did. How can you not know it? If you'll just wait, I'll tell you how it was. It was a crime. We did a terrible crime. It cannot be hid. You think it can, but wait. Poor Quentin, you've never done that, have you? And I'll tell you how it was. I'll tell Father. Then it'll have to be you because you love Father. Then we'll have to go away amid the pointing and the horror, the clean flame. I'll make you say, you did. I'm stronger than you. I'll make you know we did. You thought it was all of them, but it was me. Listen, I fooled you all the time. It was me. You thought I was in the house where that damned honeysuckle, trying not to think, the swing, the cedars, the secret surges, the breathing, locked, drinking, the wild breath, the yes, yes, yes. Never begot to drink wine himself, but he always said that a hamper, what book did you read, that in the one where Gerald's rowing suit of wine was a necessary part of any gentleman's picnic basket. Did you love them, Caddy? Did you love them? When they touched me, I died. 1 minute she was standing there. The next he was yelling and pulling at her dress. They went into the hall and up the stairs, yelling and shoving at her up the stairs to the bathroom door, and stopped her back against the door and her arm across her face, yelling and trying to shove her into the bathroom. When she came in to supper, TP was feeding him. He started again, just whimpering at first until she touched him. Then he yelled. She stood there, her eyes like cornered rats. Then I was running in the gray darkness. It smelled of rain and all flower scents, the damp warm air released, and crickets sawing away in the grass, pacing me with a small traveling island of silence. Fancy watched me across the fence, blotchy like a quilt on a line. I thought, damn that. He forgot to feed her again. I ran down the hill in that vacuum of crickets, like a breath traveling across a mirror. She was lying in the water, her head on the sand spit, the water flowing about her hips. There was a little more light in the water. Her skirt, half saturated, flopped along her flanks to the water's motion in heavy ripples going nowhere, renewed themselves of their own movement. I stood on the bank, and I could smell the honeysuckle on the water gap. The air seemed to drizzle with honeysuckle and with the rasping of crickets, a substance you could feel on the flesh. Is Benji still crying? I don't know. Yes, I don't know. Poor Benji. I sat down on the bank. The grass was damp a little, and then I found my shoes wet. Get out of that water. Are you crazy? But she didn't move. Her face was a white blur framed out of the blur of the sand by her hair. Get out now. She sat up, and then she rose. Her skirt flopped against her, draining. She climbed the bank, her clothes flopping. Sat down. Why don't you wring it out? Do you want to catch cold? Yes. The water sucked and gurgled across the sand spit and on in the dark among the willows across the shallow. The water rippled like a piece of cloth, holding still a little light as water does. He doesn't cross all the oceans, all around the world. Then she talked about him, clasping her wet knees, her face tilted back in the gray light, the smell of honeysuckle. There was a light in Mother's room and in Benji's where TP was putting him to bed. Do you love him? Her hand came out. I didn't move it, fumbled down my arm, and she held my hand flat against her, her heart thudding. No. Did he make you feel then he made you do it? Let him. He was stronger than you, and he tomorrow. I'll kill him, I swear I will. Father needn't know until afterward, and then you and I, nobody need ever know. We can take my school money. We can cancel my matriculation. Caddy, you hate him, don't you? Don't you? She held my hand against her chest, her heart thudding. I turned and caught her arm. Caddy, you hate him, don't you? She moved my hand up against her throat. Her heart was hammering there. Poor Quentin. Her face looked at the sky. It was low, so low that all smells and sounds of night seemed to have been crowded down like under a slack tent, especially the honeysuckle. It had got into my breathing. It was on her face and throat like paint. Her blood pounded against my hand. I was leaning on my other arm. It began to jerk and jump, and I had to pant to get any air at all out of that thick gray honeysuckle. Yes, I hate him. I would die for him. I've already died for him. I die for him over and over again every time this goes. When I lifted my hand, I could still feel crisscrossed twigs and grass burning into the palm. Poor Quentin. She leaned back on her arms, her hands locked about her knees. You've never done that, have you? What done what? That what I did. Yes, lots of times, with lots of girls. Then I was crying. Her hand touched me again, and I was crying against her damp blouse. Then she, lying on her back, looking past my head into the sky, I could see a brim of white under her irises. I opened my knife. Do you remember the day Muddy died, when you sat down in the water in your drawers? Yes. I held the point of the knife at her throat. It won't take but a second. Just a second. Then I can do mine. I can do mine then. All right. Can you do yours by yourself? Yes, the blade's long enough. Benji's in bed by now. Yes. It won't take but a second. I'll try not to hurt. All right. Will you close your eyes? No, not like this. You'll have to push it harder. Touch your hand to it. But she didn't move. Her eyes were wide open, looking past my head at the sky. Caddy, do you remember how Dilsey fussed at you because your drawers were muddy? Don't cry. I'm not crying, Caddy. Push it. Are you going to? Do you want me to? Yes, push it. Touch your hand to it. Don't cry, poor Quentin. But I couldn't stop. She held my head against her damp, hard breasts, and I could hear her heart going firm and slow, now not hammering, and the water gurgling among the willows in the dark, and the waves of honeysuckle coming up in the air. My arm and shoulders were twisted under me. What is it? What are you doing? Her muscles gathered. I sat up. It's my knife. I dropped it. She sat up. What time is it? I don't know. She rose to her feet. I fumbled along the ground. I'm going to let it go. I could feel her standing there. I could smell her damp clothes, feeling her there. It's right here, somewhere. Let it go. You can find it. Tomorrow, come on. Wait a minute, I'll find it. Are you afraid to? Here it is. It was right here all this time. Was it come on? I got up and followed. We went up the hill, the crickets hushing before us. It's funny how you can sit down and drop something and have to hunt all around for it. It was gray with dew slanting up into the gray sky, then the trees beyond. Damn that honeysuckle. I wish it would stop. You used to like it. We crossed the crest and went on toward the trees. She walked to me. She gave over a little. The ditch was a black scar on the gray grass. She walked into me again. She looked at me and gave over. We reached the ditch. Let's go this way. What for? Let's see if you can still see Nancy's bones. I haven't thought to look in a long time, have you? It was matted with vines and briars, dark. They were right here. You can't tell whether you can see them or not, can you? Stop, Quentin. Come on. The ditch narrowed, closed. She turned towards the trees. Stop, Quentin. Caddy. I got in front of her again. Caddy, stop it. I held her. I'm stronger than you. She was motionless, hard, unyielding, but still. I won't fight. Stop. You'd better stop. Caddy, don't. Caddy, it won't do any good. Don't you know it won't let me go? The honeysuckle drizzled, and I could hear the crickets watching us in a circle. She moved back, went around me, on toward the trees. You go on back to the house. You needn't come. I went on. Why don't you go on back to the house? Damn that honeysuckle. We reached the fence. She crawled through. I crawled through. When I rose from stooping, he was coming out of the tree into the gray towards us, coming toward us, tall and flat, and still, even moving like he was still. She went on to him. This is Quentin. I'm wet. I'm wet all over. You don't have to if you don't want to. Their shadows. One shadow. Her head rose. It was above his on the sky, higher. Their two heads. You don't have to if you don't want to. Then not two heads. The darkness smelled of rain, of damp grass and leaves, the gray light drizzling like rain, the honeysuckle coming up in damp waves. I could see her face a blur against his shoulders. He held her in one arm like she was no bigger than a child. He extended his hand. Glad to know you. We shook hands. Then we stood there, her shadow high against his shadow, one shadow. What are you going to do, Quentin? Walk a while. I think I'll go through the woods to the road and come back through the town. I turned away, going, "Good night, Quentin." I stopped. "What do you want?" In the woods, the tree frogs were going, smelling rain in the air. They sounded like toy music boxes that were hard to turn, and the honeysuckle. "Come here. What do you want?" "Come here, Quentin." I went back. She touched my shoulder, leaning down, her shadow, the blur of her face leaning down from her high shadow. I drew back. "Look out. You go on home. I'm not sleepy. I'm going to take a walk. Wait for me at the branch. I'm going for a walk. I'll be there soon. Wait for me." "You wait." "No. I'm going through the woods." I didn't look back. The tree frogs didn't pay me any mind. The gray light like moss in the trees, drizzling, but still I wouldn't rain after a while. I went back to the edge of the woods. As soon as I got there, I began to smell honeysuckle again. I could see the lights on the courthouse clock and the glare of town, the square on the sky and the dark willows along the branch and the light in Mother's window and the light still on in Benji's room. And I stooped through the fence and went across the pasture running. I ran in the gray grass among the crickets, the honeysuckle getting stronger and stronger in the smell of water. Then I could see the water, the color of gray honeysuckle. I lay down on the bank with my face close to the ground so I couldn't smell the honeysuckle. I couldn't smell it then, and I lay there feeling the earth going through my clothes, listening to the water, and after a while I wasn't breathing so hard, and I lay there thinking that if I didn't move my face I wouldn't have to breathe hard and smell it, and then I wasn't thinking about anything at all. She came along the bank and stopped, and I didn't move. "It's late. You go on home." "What?" "You go on home. It's late." "All right." Her clothes rustled. I didn't move. They stopped rustling. "Are you going in like I told you?" I didn't hear anything. "Catty." "Yes, I will if you want me to. I will." I sat up. She was sitting on the ground, her hands clasped about her knee. "Go on to the house like I told you." "Yes, I'll do anything you want me to. Yes, anything." She didn't even look at me. I caught her shoulder and shook her hard. "You shut up." I shook her. "You shut up. You shut up." "Yes." She lifted her face. Then I saw she wasn't even looking at me at all. I couldn't see that white rim. "Get up." I pulled her. She was limp. I lifted her to her feet. "Go on now." Was Benji still crying when you left? "Go on." We crossed the branch. The roof came in sight and the windows upstairs. He's asleep now. We crossed the branch. The roof came in sight, then the windows upstairs. He's asleep now. I had to stop and fasten the gate. She went on in the gray light, the smell of rain, and still it wouldn't rain, and honeysuckle beginning to come from the garden fence beginning. She went into the shadow. I could hear her feet. Then, "Catty." I stopped at the steps. I couldn't hear her feet. "Catty." I heard her feet, then my hand touched her, not warm, not cool, just still her clothes, a little damp still. "Do you love him now?" Not breathing except slow, like far away breathing. "Catty, do you love him now?" "I don't know." Outside the gray light, the shadows of things like dead things in stagnant water. "I wish you were dead. Do you coming in on now? Are you thinking about him now?" "I don't know." "Tell me what you're thinking about me. Tell me what you're thinking about me." "Stop. Stop, Quentin. You shut up. You shut up. You hear me? You shut up. Are you going to shut up?" "All right. I will stop. We'll make too much noise. I'll kill you. Do you hear? Let's go out to the swing. They'll hear you there. They'll hear you here." "I'm not crying. Do you say I'm crying?" "No, hush. Now we'll wake Benji up. You go on into the house. You go on now." "I am. Don't cry. I'm bad anyway. You can't help it. There's a curse on us. It's not our fault. Is it our fault? Hush. Come on. Go to bed now. You can't make me. There's a curse on us." Finally, I saw him. He was just going into the barber shop. He looked out. I went out and waited. "I've been looking for you two for 3 days. I've been looking for you 2 or 3 days. You wanted to see me? I'm going to see you." He rolled the cigarette quickly. With about 2 motions, he struck the match with his thumb. "We can't talk here. Suppose I meet you somewhere. I'll come to your room. Are you at the hotel?" "No." "That's not so good. You know that bridge over the creek in there back of..." "Yes, all right. At 1 o'clock, right?" "Yes." I turned away. "I'm obliged to you. Look." I stopped, looked back. "She all right?" He looked like he was made out of bronze, this khaki shirt. "She need me for anything now." "I'll be there at 1. She heard me tell TP to saddle Prince at 1 o'clock. She kept watching me, not eating much. She came too. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. Can't I go for a ride if I want to?" "You're going to do something. What is it?" "None of your business." TP had Prince at the side door. I won't him. I won't want him. I'm going to walk. I went down the drive and out the gate. I turned into the lane. Then I ran before I reached the bridge. I saw him leaning on the rail. The horse was hitched in the woods. He looked over his shoulder, then he looked his back. He didn't look up until I came onto the bridge and stopped. He had a piece of bark in his hands, breaking pieces from it and dropping them over the rail into the water. I came to tell you to leave town. He broke a piece of bark, deliberately dropped it carefully into the water, watched it float away. I said, you must leave town. He looked at me. Did she send you to me? I say, you must go, not my father, not anybody. I say it. Listen, save this for a while. I want to know if she's all right. Have they been bothering her up there? That's something you don't need to trouble yourself about. Then I heard myself saying, I'll give you until sundown to leave town. He broke a piece of bark and dropped it into the water. Then he laid the bark on the rail and rolled a cigarette. With those two swift motions, spun the match over the rail. What will you do if I don't leave? I'll kill you. Don't you think that just because I look like a kid to you? The smoke flowed in two jets from his nostrils across his face. How old are you? I began to shake. My hands were on the rail. I thought if I hid them, he'd know why. I'll give you until tonight. Listen, buddy, what's your name? Benji's the natural, isn't he? You are Quentin. My mouth said it. I didn't say it at all. I'll give you till sundown, Quentin. He raked the cigarette ash carefully off against the rail. He did it slowly and carefully, like sharpening a pencil. My hand had quit shaking. Listen, no good taking it so hard. It's not your fault, kid. It would have been some other fellow. Did you ever have a sister? Did you? No, but they're all bitches. I hit him. My open hand beat the impulse to shut it in his face. His hand moved as fast as mine. The cigarette went over the rail. I swung with the other hand. He caught it, too, before the cigarette reached the water. He held both my wrists in the same hand. His other hand flicked to his armpit under his coat behind him. The sun slanted, and a bird singing somewhere beyond the sun. We looked at one another while the bird singing. He turned my hands loose. He took the bark from the rail and dropped it into the water. It bobbed up the current, took it, floated away. His hand lay on the rail, holding the pistol loosely. We waited. You can't hit it now. No. It floated on and quite still in the woods. I heard the bird again, and the water afterward. The pistol came up. He didn't aim at all. The bark disappeared. Then pieces of it floated up, spreading. He hit two more of them, pieces of bark no bigger than silver dollars. That's enough, I guess. He swung the cylinder out and blew into the barrel. A thin wisp of smoke dissolved. He reloaded the 3 chambers, shut the cylinder. He handed it to me, but first. What for? I won't try to beat that. You'll need it from what you said. I'm giving you this one because you've seen what it'll do. To hell with your gun. I hit him. I was still trying to hit him long after he was holding my wrist, but I still tried then. It was like I was looking at him through a piece of colored glass. I could hear my blood, and then I could see the sky again, and branches against it, and the sun slanting through them, and he holding me on my feet. Did you hit me? I couldn't hear. What? Yes, how do you feel? All right, let go. He let me go. I leaned against the rail. Do you feel all right? He let me alone. I'm all right. Can you make it home all right? Go on, let me alone. You'd better not try to walk. Take my horse. No, you go on. You can hang the reins on the pommel and turn him loose. He'll go back to the stable. Let me alone. You go on and let me alone. I leaned on the rail, looking at the water. I heard him untie the horse and ride off, and after a while I couldn't hear anything but the water and then the bird again. I left the bridge and sat down with my back against a tree and leaned my head against the tree and shut my eyes. A patch of sun came through and fell across my eyes, and I moved a little further around the tree. I heard the bird again in the water, and then everything sort of rolled away, and I didn't feel anything at all. I felt almost good after all those days and the nights with honeysuckle coming up from the darkness into my room where I was trying to sleep, even when after I after a while, I knew that he hadn't hit me, that he had lied about that for her sake too, and that I had just passed out like a girl, but even that didn't matter anymore, and I sat there against the tree with little flecks of sunlight brushing across my face, like yellow leaves on a twig, listening to the water and not thinking about anything at all. Even when I heard the horse coming fast, I sat there with my eyes closed and heard its feet bunch scuttling and hissing sand, and feet running, and her hard running hands. Fool, fool, are you hurt? I opened my eyes, her hands running on my face. I didn't know which way until I heard the pistol. I didn't know where. I didn't think he and you running off, slipping. I didn't think he would have. She held my face between her hands, bumping my head against the tree. Stop. Stop that. I caught her wrist. Quit that. Quit it. I knew he wouldn't. I knew he wouldn't. She tried to bump my head against the tree. I told him never to speak to me again. I told him. She tried to break her wrist free. Let me go. Stop it. I'm stronger than you. Stop it now. Let me go. I've got to catch him and ask him his. Let me go, Quentin. Please let me go. Let me go. All at once, she quit. Her wrists went lax. Yes, I can tell him. I can make him believe any time. I can make him catty. She hadn't hitched Prince. He was liable to strike out for home if the notion took him. Anyway, you will believe me. Do you love him, Caddy? Do I what? She looked at me. Then everything emptied out of her eyes, and they looked like the eyes of the statues, blank and unseeing and serene. Put your hand against my throat. She took my hand and held it flat against her throat. Now say his name. Dalton Ames. I felt the first surge of blood there. It surged in strong, accelerating beats. Yes, say it. Her face looked off into the trees where the sun slanted and where the bird. Say it again. Dalton Ames. Her blood surged steadily, beating and beating against my hand. I kept on running for a long time, but my face felt cold and sort of dead, and my eye and the cut place on my finger was smarting again. I could hear Shreve working the pump. Then he came back with the basin and a round blob of twilight wobbling in it and a yellow edge like a fading balloon, then my reflection. I tried to see my face in it. Has it stopped? Shreve said. Give me the rag. He tried to take it from my hand. Look out, I said. I can do it. Yes, it's about stopped now. I dipped the rag again, breaking the balloon. The rag stained the water. I wish I had a clean one. You need a piece of beefsteak for that eye, Shreve said. Damn, if you won't have a shiner tomorrow. Son of a bitch, he said. Did I hurt him any? I wrung out the handkerchief and tried to clean the blood off my vest. You can't get that off, Shreve said. You'll have to send it to the cleaners. Come on, hold it on your eye, why don't you? I can get some of it off, I said. But I wasn't doing much good. What sort of shape is my collar in? I don't know, Shreve said. Hold it against your eye. Here. Look out, I said. I can do it. Did I hurt him any? You may have hit him. I may have looked away just then or blinked or something. He boxed the hell out of you. He boxed you all over the place. What did you want to fight with him? Why? What did you want to fight him with your fists for? You goddamn fool. How do you feel? I feel fine, I said. I wonder if I can get something to clean my vest. Oh, forget your damn clothes. Does your eye hurt? I feel fine, I said. Everything was sort of violet and still, the sky green, paling into gold beyond the gable of the house and a plume of smoke rising from the chimney without any wind. I heard the pump again. A man was filling a pail, watching us across his pumping shoulder. A woman crossed the door, but she didn't look out. I could hear a cow lowing somewhere. Come on, Shreve said. Let your clothes alone and put that rag over your eye. I'll send your suit out first thing tomorrow. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't bleed on him a little, at least. Son of a bitch, Shreve said. Spode came out of the house, talking to the woman, I reckon, and crossed the yard. He looked at me with his cold, quizzical eyes. Well, bud, he said, looking at me, I'll be damned if you don't go to a lot of trouble to have your fun. Kidnapping, then fighting? What do you do on your holidays? Burn houses? I'm all right, I said. What did Mrs. Bland say? She's given Gerald hell for bloodying you up. She'll give you hell for letting him when she sees you. She don't object to the fighting, it's the blood that annoys her. I think you lost caste with her a little by not holding your blood letter. How do you feel? Sure, Shreve said. If you can't be a bland, the next best thing is to commit adultery with one or get drunk and fight him, as the case may be. Quite right, Spode said. But I didn't know Quentin was drunk. He wasn't, Shreve said. Do you have to be drunk to want to hit that son of a bitch? Well, I think I'd have to be pretty drunk to try it, after seeing how Quentin came out. Where'd he learn to box? He's been going to Mike's every day over in town, I said. He has, Spode said. Did you know that when you hit him? I don't know, I said. I guess so, yes. Wet it again, Shreve said. Want some fresh water? It's all right, I said. I dipped my cloth again and held it to my eye. Wish I had something to clean my vest. Spode was still watching me. Say, he said, what did you hit him for? What was it he said? I don't know. I don't know why I did. The first I knew was when you jumped up all of a sudden and said, did you ever have a sister? Did you? And when he said no, you just hit him. I noticed you kept on looking at him, but you didn't seem to be paying any attention to what anybody was saying until you jumped up and asked him if he had any sisters. Ah, he's blowing off as usual, Shreve said, about his women. You know, like he does before girls, so they don't know exactly what he's saying. All this damn innuendo and lying and a lot of stuff that they don't even make sense. Telling us about some wench that he made a date with to meet at a dance hall in Atlantic City and stood her up and went to the hotel and went to bed, and how he lay there being sorry for her waiting on the pier for him without him there to give her what she wanted. Talking about the body's beauty and the sorry ends thereof and how tough women have it without anything else they can do except lie on their backs. Lita lurking in the bushes, whimpering and moaning for the swan. See? Son of a bitch. I'd hit him myself, only I'd grab up her damn hamper of wine and done it if it had been me. Oh, Spo said, the champion of dames. But you excite not only admiration, but horror. He looked at me, cold and quizzical. Good God, he said. I'm sorry I hit him, I said. Do I look too bad to go back and get it over with? Apologies. Hell, Shreve said. Let him go to hell. We're going to town. He ought to go back so they'll know he fights like a gentleman, Spode said. Get licks like one, I mean. Like this? Shreve said, with his clothes all over blood. Why, all right, Spode said. You know best. He can't go around in his undershirt, Shreve said. He's not a senior yet. Come on, let's go to town. You needn't come, I said. You go back to the picnic. Hell with them, Shreve said. Come on here. What'll I tell him? Spode said. Tell them you and Quentin had a fight too. Tell them nothing, Shreve said. Tell her opinion expired at sunset. Come on, Quentin. I'll ask that woman where the nearest urban... No, I said. I'm not going back to town. Shreve stopped, looking at me. His glasses looked like small yellow moons. What are you going to do? I'm not going back to town yet. You go on back to the picnic. Tell them I wouldn't come back because my clothes were spoiled. Look here, he said. What are you up to? Nothing. I'm all right. You and Spode go on back. I'll see you tomorrow. I went on across the yard, toward the road. Do you know where the station is? Shreve said. I'll find it. I'll see you all tomorrow. Tell Mrs. Bland I'm sorry I spoiled her party. They stood watching me. I went around the house. A rock path went down to the road. Roses grew on both sides of the path. I went through the gate onto the road. It dropped downhill toward the woods, and I could make out the auto beside the road. I went up the hill. The light increased as I mounted, and before I reached the top, I heard a car. It sounded far away across the twilight, and I stopped and listened to it. I couldn't make out the auto any longer, but Shreve was standing in the road before the house, looking up the hill. Behind him, the yellow light lay like a wash of paint on the roof of the house. I lifted my hand and went on over the hill, listening to the car. Then the house was gone, and I stopped in the green and yellow light and heard the car growing louder and louder until just as it began to die away, it ceased altogether. I waited until I heard it start again. Then I went on. As I descended, the light dwindled slowly, yet at the same time without altering its quality, as if I, and not light, were changing, decreasing. Though even when the road ran into trees, you could have read a newspaper. Pretty soon I came to a lane. I looked into it. It was closer and darker than the road, but when it came out at the trolley stop, another wooden marquee, the light was still unchanged. After the lane, it seemed brighter, as though I had walked through night in the lane and come out into morning again. Pretty soon, the car came. I got on in. They turned to look at my eye and found a seat on the left side. The lights were on in the car, so while we ran between trees, I couldn't see anything except my own face and a woman across the aisle with a hat sitting right on top of her head with a broken feather in it. But when we ran out of the trees, I could see the twilight again, that quality of light, as if time really had stopped for a while, when the sun hanging just under the horizon, and then he passed the marquee where the old man had been eating out of the sack, and the road going on under the twilight into twilight, and the sense of water peaceful and swift beyond. Then the car went on, the draft building steadily up in the open door until it was drawing steadily through the car with the odor of summer and darkness except honeysuckle. Honeysuckle was the saddest odor of all, I think. I remember lots of them. Wisteria was one. On the rainy days when Mother wasn't feeling quite bad enough to stay away from the window, we used to play under it. When Mother stayed in bed, Dilsey would put old clothes on us and let us go out in the rain because she said rain never hurt young folks. But if Mother was up, we always began by playing on the porch until she said we were making too much noise. Then we went out and played under the wisteria frame. This was where I saw the river for the last time this morning, about here. I could feel water beyond the twilight smell. When it bloomed in the spring and it rained, the smell was everywhere. You didn't notice. It was so much at other times, but when it rained, the smell began to come into the house at twilight. Either it would rain more at twilight or there was something in the light itself, but it always smelled strongest then, until I would lie in bed thinking, when will it stop? When will it stop? Then the draft in the door smelled of water, a damp, steady breath. Sometimes I could put myself to sleep saying that over and over until after the honeysuckle got all mixed up in it. The whole thing came to symbolize night and unrest, and I seemed to be lying, neither asleep nor awake, looking down a long corridor of gray half-light, where all stable things had become shadowy, paradoxical. All I had done, shadows, all I had felt, suffered, taking visible form, antic and perverse, mocking without relevance inherent themselves with the denial of the significance they should have affirmed, thinking I was not who was not who was not who. I could smell the curves of the river beyond the dusk, and I saw the last light supine and tranquil upon tide flats like pieces of broken mirror. Then beyond them lights began in the pale clear air, trembling a little like butterflies hovering a long way off. Benjamin, the child of, how he used to sit before that mirror, refuge unfailing in which conflict tampered, silenced, reconciled. Benjamin, the child of mine old age, held hostage into Egypt. Oh, Benjamin. Dilsey said it was because Mother was too proud for him. They come into white people's lives like that in sudden, sharp, black trickles that isolate white facts for an instant in unarguable truths, like under a microscope. The rest of the time, just voices that laugh when you see nothing to laugh at. Tears when no reason for tears. They will bet on the odd or even number of mourners at a funeral. A brothel full of them in Memphis went into a religious trance, ran naked into the street. It took 3 policemen to subdue one of them. Yes, Jesus, oh, good man Jesus, oh, that good man. The car stopped. I got out, with them looking at my eye. When the trolley came, it was full. I stopped on the back platform. "Seats up front," the conductor said. I looked into the car. There were no seats on the left side. "I'm not going far," I said. "I'll just stand here." We crossed the river, the bridge, that is, arching slow and high into space, between silence and nothingness, where lights, yellow and red and green, trembled in the clear air, repeating themselves. "Better go up front and get a seat," the conductor said. "I get off pretty soon," I said. "A couple of blocks." I got off before we reached the post office. They'd all be sitting around somewhere by now, though. And then I was hearing my watch, and I began to listen for the chimes, and I touched Shreve's letter through my coat, the bitten shadows of the elms flowing upon my hand. And then, as I turned into the quad, the chimes did begin, and I went on while the notes came up like ripples on a pool, and past me, and went on, saying, "Quarter to what?" "All right, quarter to what?" Our windows were dark. The entrance was empty. I walked close to the left wall when I entered, but it was empty. Just the stairs curving up into shadows, echoes of feet in the sad generations like light dust upon the shadows, my feet waking them like dust, lightning to settle again. I could see the letter before I turned the light on, propped against a book on the table so I would see it, calling him my husband. And then Spode said they were going somewhere, would not be back until late, and Mrs. Bland would need another cavalier. But I would have seen him, and he cannot get another car for an hour because after 6 o'clock. I took out my watch and listened to it clicking away, not knowing it couldn't even lie. Then I laid my face up on the table and took Mrs. Bland's letter and tore it across and dropped the pieces into the wastebasket and took off my coat, vest, collar, tie, and shirt. The tie was spoiled, too, but then... Maybe a pattern of blood, he could call that, the one Christ was wearing. I found the gasoline in Shreve's room and spread the vest on the table where it would be flat and opened the gasoline. The first car in town, a girl, that's what Jason couldn't bear, smell of gasoline making him sick, then got madder than ever because a girl had no sister but Benjamin, the child of my sorrowful, if I'd just had a mother so I could say, mother. I took a lot of gasoline, and then I couldn't tell if it was just the stain or just the gasoline. It had started the cut to smarting again, so when I went to wash, I hung the vest on a chair and lowered the light cord so that the bulb would be drying the splotch. I washed my face and hands, but even then I could smell it within the soap, stinging, constricting the nostrils a little. Then I opened the bag and took the shirt and collar and tie out and put the bloody ones in and closed the bag and dressed. While I was brushing my hair, the half hour went. But there was, until the 3/4 away, except, suppose, seeing on the rushing darkness only his own face, no broken feather, unless 2 of them, but not 2 like that, going to Boston the same night, then my face, his face, for an instant across the crashing, when out of darkness 2 lighted windows in rigid fleeing crash, gone his face and mine, just I see, not goodbye, the marquee empty of eating, the road empty, in darkness, in silence, the bridge arcing into silence, darkness, sleep, the water peaceful and swift, not goodbye. I turned out the light and went into my room, out of the gasoline, but I could still smell it. I stood at the window, the curtains moved slow out of the darkness, touching my face like something breathing, asleep, breathing slow into the darkness again, leaving the touch. After they had gone upstairs, Mother lay back in her chair, the camphor handkerchief to her mouth. Father hadn't moved. He sat still beside her, holding her hand, the bellowing hammering away like no place for it, in silence. When I was little, there was a picture in one of our books, a dark place into which a single weak ray of light came slanting upon 2 faces lifted out of the shadow. You know what I'd do if I were king. She never was a queen or a fairy. She was always a king or a giant or a general. I'd break that place open and drag them out, and I'd whip them good. It was torn out, jagged out. I was glad. I'd have to turn back to it until the dungeon was Mother herself, she and Father upward into weak light, holding hands, and us lost somewhere below even them, without even a ray of light. Then the honeysuckle got into it. As soon as I turned off the light and tried to go to sleep, it would begin to come into the room in waves, building and building up until I would have to pant to get any air at all out of it, until I would have to get up and feel my way like when I was a little boy. Hands can see, touching in the mind-shaping unseen door. Now, nothing. Hands can see. My nose could see gasoline, the vest on the table, the door. The corridor was still empty of all the feet in sad generations seeking water, yet the eyes, unseeing, clenched like teeth, not disbelieving, doubting even the absence of pain, shin, ankle, knee, the long invisible flowing of the stair railing, where a misstep in the darkness filled with sleeping mother, father, caddy, Jason, Maury, door. I am not afraid, only mother, father, caddy, Jason, Maury, getting so far ahead, sleeping, I will sleep. Fast when I door. It was empty, too. The pipes, the porcelain, the stained quiet walls, the throng of contemplation. I had forgotten the glass, but I could, hands can see, cooling fingers, invisible swan throat where less than Moses rod, the glass touch, tentative knot to drumming, lean, cool throat, drumming, cooling the metal, the glass full over full, cooling the glass, the fingers flushing, sleep, leaving the taste of dampened sleep in the long silence of the throat. I turned up the corridor, waking the lost feet in whispering battalions in the silence, into the gasoline, the watch telling its furious lie on the dark table. Then the curtains breathing out of the dark upon my face, leaving the breathing upon my face. A quarter hour later. And then I'll not be. The peacefulest words. Non fi, non sum. Somewhere I heard bells once. Mississippi or Massachusetts. I am not. Massachusetts or Mississippi. Shreve has a bottle in his trunk. Aren't you even going to open it? Mr. and Mrs. Jason Richmond Compson announced the 3 times days. Aren't you even going to open it? Marriage of their daughter, Candace. That liquor touches you to confuse the means with the end. I am. Drink. I was not. Let us sell Benji's pasture so that Quentin may go to Harvard and I may knock my bones together, and together I will be dead in. Was it not 1 year, Caddy said. Shreve has a bottle in his trunk. Sir, I will not need Shreve's. I have sold Benji's pasture, and I can be dead in Harvard, Caddy said, in the caverns and the grottos of the sea, tumbling peacefully to the wavering tides, because Harvard is such a fine sound. 40 acres is no high price for a fine sound. A fine, dead sound. We will swap Benji's pasture for a fine, dead sound. It will last him a long time because he cannot hear it unless he can smell it. As soon as she came in the door, he began to cry. I thought all the time it was just one of those town squirts that father was always teasing her about, until I didn't notice him any more than any other stranger drummer, or what thought they were army shirts, until all of a sudden I knew he wasn't thinking of me at all as a potential source of harm, but was thinking of her when he looked at me, was looking at me through her like through a piece of colored glass. Why must you meddle with me? Don't you know it won't do any good? I thought you'd have left that for Mother and Jason. Did Mother set Jason to spy on you? I wouldn't have. Women only use their people's codes of honor. It's because she loves Caddy, staying downstairs even when she was sick, so father couldn't kid Uncle Maury before Jason. Father said Uncle Maury was too poor a classicist to risk the blind, immortal boy in person. He should have chosen Jason because Jason would have made only the same kind of blunder Uncle Maury himself would have made, not one to get him a black eye. The Patterson boy was smaller than Jason, too. They sold the kites for a nickel apiece. Until the trouble over finances, Jason got a new partner, still smaller one, small enough anyway, because TP said Jason's still treasurer, but father said, why shouldn't Uncle Maury work if father could support 5 or 6 that did nothing at all but sit with their feet in the oven. He certainly could board and lodge Uncle Maury now and then and lend him a little money, who kept his father's belief in the celestial derivation of his own species at such a fine heat. Then mother would cry and say that father believed his people were better than hers, that he was ridiculing Uncle Maury to teach us the same thing she couldn't see that father was teaching us, that all men are just accumulations, dolls stuffed with sawdust, swept up from the trash heaps where all previous dolls had been thrown away, the sawdust flowing from what wound in the side that not for me died not. It used to be, I thought of death as a man, something like grandfather, a friend of his, a kind of private and particular friend, like we used to think of grandfather's desk, not to touch it, not even to talk loud in the room where it was. I always thought of them as being together somewhere all the time, waiting for old Colonel Sartoris to come down and sit with them, waiting on a high place beyond cedar trees. Colonel Sartoris was on a still higher place looking out across at something, and they were waiting for him to get done looking at it and come down. Father wore his uniform, and we could hear the murmur of their voices from beyond the cedars. They were always talking, and grandfather was always right. The 3/4 began. The first note sounded measured and tranquil, serenely peremptory, emptying the unhurried silence for the next one, and that's if people could only change one another forever, that way merge like a flame swirling up for an instant, then blown cleanly out along the cool, eternal dark, instead of lying there trying not to think of the swing until all cedars came to have that vivid, dead smell of perfume that Benji hated so. Just by imagining the clump, it seemed to me that I could hear whispers, secret surges, smell the beating of hot blood under wild, unsecret flesh, watching against red eyelids the swine untethered in pairs rushing, coupled into the sea, and we must stay awake and see evil done for a little while. It's not always, it doesn't have to be even that long for a man of courage. And do you consider that courage? And I, yes, sir, don't you? And every man is the arbiter of his own virtues. Whether or not you consider it courageous is of more importance than the act itself, than any act otherwise. You could not be in earnest. And you don't believe I am serious. And I think you are too serious to give me any cause for alarm. You wouldn't have felt driven to the expedient of telling me you have committed incest otherwise. I wasn't lying, and you wanted to sublimate a piece of natural human folly into a horror, and then exercise it with truth, and it was to isolate her out of the loud world so that it would have to flee us of necessity, and then the sound of it would be as though it had never been, and did you try to make her do it? And I was afraid to. I was afraid she might, and then it wouldn't have done any good. But if I could tell you we did, it would be so, and then the others wouldn't be so, and then the world would roar away, and now, and this other. You are not lying now either, but you are still blind to what is in yourself, in that part of general truth, the sequence of natural events, and that causes which shadows every man's brow, even Benji's. You are not thinking of finitude, you are contemplating an apotheosis in which a temporary state of mind will become symmetrical above the flesh and aware both of itself and of the flesh. It will not quite discard, you will not even be dead, and I temporary, and you cannot bear to think that someday it will no longer hurt you like this. We're getting at it. You seem to regard it merely as an experience that will whiten your hair overnight, so to speak, without altering your appearance at all. You won't do it under these conditions. It will be a gamble, and the strange thing is that man who is conceived by accident and whose every breath is a fresh cast of dice already loaded against him will not face that final main which he knows beforehand he is assuredly to face without essaying expedients ranging all the way from violence to petty chicanery that would not deceive a child until someday, in very disgust, he risks him everything on a single blind turn of a card. No man ever does that under the first fury of despair or remorse or bereavement. He does it only when he has realized that even the despair or remorse or bereavement is not particularly important to the dark diceman and I temporary, and he is hard believing to think that a love or sorrow is a bond purchased without design and which matures willy-nilly and is recalled without warning to be replaced by whatever issue the gods happen to be floating at the time. No, you will not, do not No, you will not do that until you come to believe that even she was not quite worth despair, perhaps, and I will never do that. Nobody knows what I know, and I think you'd better go on up to Cambridge right away. You might go up into Maine for a month. You can afford it. If you are careful, it might be a good thing. Watching pennies has healed more scars than Jesus, and I suppose I realize what you believe I will realize up there next week or next month, and then you will remember that for you to go to Harvard has been your mother's dream since you were born, and no Compson has ever disappointed a lady, and I temporary will be better for me, for all of us, and every man is the arbiter of his own virtues, but let no man prescribe for another man's well-being, and I temporary, and he was the saddest world of all. There is nothing else in the world. It's not despair until time. It's not even time until it was. The last note sounded. At last, it stopped vibrating, and the darkness was still again. I entered the sitting room and turned on the light. I put my vest on. The gasoline was faint now, barely noticeable, and in the mirror the stain didn't show, not like my eye did, anyway. I put on my coat. Shreve's letter crackled through the cloth, and I took it out and examined the address and put it in my side pocket. Then I carried the watch into Shreve's room and put it in his drawer and went to my room and got a fresh handkerchief and went to the door and put my hand on the light switch. Then I remembered I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I had to open the bag again. I found my toothbrush and got some of Shreve's paste and went out and brushed my teeth. I squeezed the brush as dry as I could and put it back in the bag and shut it, and went to the door again. Before I snapped the light out, I looked around to see if there was anything else, and I saw that I had forgotten my hat. I'd have to go by the post office, and I'd be sure to meet some of them, and they'd think I was a Harvard Square student making like he was a senior. I had forgotten to brush it, too, but Shreve had a brush, so I didn't have to open the bag anymore. End of June 2nd, 1910. So, I'm glad that we didn't continue on this chapter last time. And we'll stop again midway through this one. Okay, so there's only 2 more dates left. So we'll see how it goes. But we have April 6th, 1928 and April 8th, 1928, which is interesting. Okay, so why is this interesting? I'm about to tell you. So our first date, our first section was April 7th, 1928. And then we go back to June 2nd, 1910. And then we go back to the day before our first chapter at April 6th, 1928. And then we go the day after our first chapter at April 8th, 1928. That's pretty cool. I'm usually not one to keep track of dates. I just figure it out. But I need it. I need this to ground me. So we finished June 2nd, 1910, and we will start April 6th, 1928. All right. April 6th, 1928. Once a bitch, always a bitch, what I say. I says you're lucky if her playing out of school is all that worries you. I says you ought to be down there in that kitchen right now instead of up there in her room gobbing paint on her face and waiting for 6 that can't even stand up out of a chair unless they got a pan full of bread and meat to balance them to fix breakfast for her. And Mama says, but to have the school authorities think that I have no control over her, that I can't, well, I says, you can't, can you? You never have tried to do anything with her, I says. How do you expect to begin this late when she's 17 years old? She thought about that for a while. But to have them think that I didn't even know she had a report card. She told me last fall that they had quit using them this year. And now for Professor Junkin to call me on the telephone and tell me if she's absent one more time, she'll have to leave school. How does she do it? Where does she go? You're downtown all day. You ought to see her if she stays on the streets. Yeah, I say. If she stayed on the streets, I don't reckon she'd be playing out of school just to do something she could do in public, I says. What do you mean? She says. I don't mean anything, I says. I just answered your question. Then she began to cry, talking about how her own flesh and blood rose up to curse her. You asked me, I said. Oh, I don't mean you, she said. You are the only one of them that isn't a reproach to me. Sure, I says. I never had time to be. I never had time to go to Harvard like Quentin or drink myself into the ground like father. I had to work. But of course, if you want me to follow her around and see what she does, I can quit the store and get a job where I can work at night. Then I can watch her during the day and you can use Ben for the night shift. I know I'm just a trouble and a burden to you, she says, crying on the pillow. I ought to know it, I says. You've been telling me that for 30 years. Even Ben ought to know it now. Do you want me to say anything to her about it? Do you think it will do any good? She said. Not if you come down there interfering just when I get started, I says. If you want me to control her, just say so and keep your hands off. Every time I try to, you come butting in, and then she gives both of us the laugh. Remember, she's your own flesh and blood, she said. Sure, I says. That's just what I'm thinking of. Flesh. And what a little blood, too, if I had my way. When people act like, no matter who they are, the only thing to do is treat 'em like. I'm afraid you'll lose your temper with her, she says. Well, I said, you haven't had much luck with your system. You want me to do anything about it or not? Say one way or the other. I've got to get on to work. I know you have to slave your life away for us, she said. You know, if I had my way, you'd have an office of your own to go to, and ours that become a Boscombe, because you are a Boscombe despite your name. I know that if your father could have seen... Well, I says, I reckon he's entitled to guess wrong now and then, like everybody else, even a Smith or Jones. She begun to cry again. To hear you speak bitterly of your dead father, she said. All right, I says. All right, have it your way. But as I haven't got an office, I'll have to get on to what I have got. Do you want me to say anything to her? Well, I'm afraid you'll lose her temper with her, she says. All right, I says. I won't say anything then. But something must be done, she says, to have people think I permit her to stay out of school and run the streets, or that I can't prevent her doing it. Jason, she says, how could you leave me with these burdens? Now, I says, you'll make yourself sick. Why don't you either lock her up all day, too, or turn her over to me and quit worrying over her? My own flesh and blood, she says, crying. So I says, all right, I'll tend to her. Quit crying now. Don't lose your temper, she says. She's just a child, remember? No, I says, I won't. I went out, closing the door. Jason, she says. I didn't answer. I went down the hall. Jason, she says, beyond the door. I went on downstairs. There wasn't anybody in the dining room. Then I heard her in the kitchen. She was trying to make Dilsey let her have another cup of coffee. I went in. I reckon that's your school costume, is it? I said. Or maybe today's a holiday. Just half a cup, Dilsey, she says. Please. No, sir, Dilsey says. I ain't going to do it. You ain't got no business with more 1 cup. A 17-year-old gal, let alone what Miss Caroline said. You go on and get dressed for school if you can ride to town with Jason. You fix him be late again. No, she's not, I said. We're going to fix that right now. She looked at me, the cup in her hand. She brushed her hair back from her face, her kimono slipping off her shoulder. You put that cup down and come in here a minute, I says. What for? She said, come on. I said, put that cup in the sink and come on in here. What are you up to now, Jason? Dilsey says. You may think you can run over me like you do your grandmother and everybody else, I says. But you'll find out different. I'll give you 10 seconds to put that cup down like I told you. She quit looking at me. She looked at Dilsey. What time is it, Dilsey? She said. When it's 10 seconds, you whistle. Just a half a cup, Dilsey. I grabbed her by the arm. She dropped the cup. It broke on the floor, and she jerked back, looking at me, but I held her arm. Dilsey got up from her chair. You, Jason, she said. You turn me loose, Quentin says. I'll slap you. You will you? I says. You will you? She slapped at me. I caught that hand, too, and held her like a wildcat. You will you? I says. You think you will? Oh, Jason, Dilsey says. I dragged her into the dining room. Her kimono came unfastened, flapping about her, damn near naked. Dilsey came hobbling along. I turned and kicked the door shut in her face. You keep out of here, I says. Quentin was leaning against the table, fastening her kimono. I looked at her. Now, I says, I want to know what you mean playing out of school and telling your grandmother lies and forging your name on your report and worrying her sick. What do you mean by it? She didn't say anything. She was fastening her kimono up under her chin, pulling it tight around her, looking at me. She hadn't got around to painting her face yet, and her face looked like she had polished it with a gun rag. I went and grabbed her wrist. What do you mean? I says. None of your damn business, she says. You turn me loose. Dilsey came to the door. You, Jason, she said. You get out of here like I told you, I says, not even looking back. I want to know where you go when you go out of school, I says. You keep off the streets or I'd see you. Who do you play out with? Are you hiding out in the woods with one of them damn jelly beans? Are we being mean? I'm assuming he doesn't mean hanging out with candy. Is that where you go? You, oh goddamn, she said. She fought and I held her. You old goddamn, she says. I'll show you, I says. You may scare an old woman off, but I'll show you who's got hold of you. I held her with one hand. Then she quit fighting and watched me, her eyes getting wide and black. What you gonna do? She says. You wait till I get this belt out and I'll show you, I says, pulling my belt out. Then Dilsey grabbed my arm. Jason, she said. You, Jason, ain't you ashamed of yourself? Dilsey, Quentin says. Dilsey. I ain't going to let him, Dilsey says. Don't you worry, honey. She held my arm. Then the belt came out and I jerked loose and flung her away. She stumbled into the table. She was so old she couldn't do any more than move hardly. But that's all right. We need somebody in the kitchen to eat up the grub the young ones can't tote off. She came hobbling between us, trying to hold me again. Hit me, Dan, she says. If nothing else but hitting somebody won't do you, hit me, she says. You think I won't? I says. I don't put no devilment beyond you, she says. Then I heard Mother on the stairs. I might have known she wasn't going to keep out of it. I let go. She stumbled back against the wall, holding her kimono shut. All right, she says. We'll just put this off a little while. But don't think you can run it over me. I'm not an old woman, nor an old half-dead either. You damn little slut. Dilsey, she says. Dilsey, I want my mother. Dilsey went to her. Now, she said. He ain't going so much as lay a hand on you while I's here. Mother came on down the stairs. Jason, she said. Dilsey. Now, Dilsey says. I ain't going to let him touch you. She put her hand on Quentin. She knocked it down. You damned old, she says. She ran toward the door. Dilsey, Mother says on the stairs. Quentin ran up the stairs, passing her. Quentin, Mother says. You, Quentin. Quentin ran on. I could hear her when she reached the top, then in the hall, then the door slammed. Mother had stopped. Then she came on. Dilsey, she says. All right, Dilsey says. I's coming. You can go on and get that car and wait now, she says, so you can carry her to school. Don't you worry, I says. I'll take her to school and I'm going to see that she stays there. I started this thing and I'm going through with it. Jason, Mother says on the stairs. Go on now, Dilsey says, looking toward the house. You want to get her started too? I's coming, Miss Caroline. I went on out. I could hear them on the steps. You go on back to bed now, Dilsey said. Don't you know you ain't feeling well enough to get up yet? Go on back now. I'm going to see if she gets to school in time. I went on out to the back to back the car out. Then I had to go all the way round to the front before I found them. I thought I told you to put that tire on the back of that car, I says. I ain't had time, Buster says. Ain't nobody to watch him till Mammy get done in the kitchen. Yes, I says. I feed a whole damn kitchen full of to follow around after him. But if I want an automobile tire changed, I have to do it myself. Ain't had nobody to leave him with, he says. Then he began moaning and slobbering. Take him on round the back, I says. What the hell makes you want to keep him round here where people can see him? I made them go on before he got started bellowing good. It's bad enough on Sundays with that damn field full of people that haven't got a sideshow and 6 to feed, knocking a damn oversized mothball around. He's gonna keep on running up and down that fence and bellowing every time they come in sight until first thing I know, they're gonna begin charging me golf dues. Then Mama and Dilsey'll have to get a couple of china doorknobs and walking stick and work it out, unless I pay at night with a lantern. Then they'd send us all to Jackson, maybe. God knows, they'd hold Old Home Week when that happened. I went on back to the garage. There was the tire leaning against the wall, but be damned if I was going to put it on. I backed out and turned around. She was standing by the drive. I says, I know you haven't got any books. I just want to ask you what you did with them, if it's any of my business. Of course, I haven't got a right to ask. I says, I'm just the one that paid $11.65 for them last September. Mama buys my books, she says. There's not a cent of your money on me. I'd starve first. Yes, I says. You tell that grandmother that and see what she says. You don't look all the way naked, I says, even if that stuff on your face does hide more of you than anything else you got on. You think your money or hers either paid for a cent of this? She says. Ask your grandmother, I says. Ask her what became of those checks. You saw her burn one of them, as I remember. She wasn't even listening, with her face all gummed up with paint and her eyes hard as a dog's. Do you know what I'd do if I thought your money or hers either bought 1 cent of this? She says, putting her hand on her dress. What would you do? I says. Wear a barrel? I'd tear it right off and throw it into the street, she said. Don't you believe me? Sure you would, I says. You do it every time. See if I wouldn't, she says. She grabbed the neck of her dress in both hands and made like she would tear it. You tear that dress, I says, and I'll give you a whipping right here that you'll remember all your life. See if I don't, she said. Then I saw that she really was trying to tear it right off of her. By the time I got the car stopped and grabbed her hands, there was about a dozen people looking. It made me so mad for a minute. It kind of blinded me. You do a thing like that again and I'll make you sorry you ever drew breath, I says. I'm sorry now, she says. She quit. Then her eyes turned kind of funny, and I says to myself, if you cry in here in this car, on this street, I'll whip you. I'll wear you out. Lucky for her, she didn't. So I turned her wrist loose and drove on. Luckily, we were near an alley where I could turn into the block street and dodge the square. They were already putting the tent up in Beard's lot. Earl had already given me the 2 passes for our show windows. She sat there with her face turned away, chewing her lip. I'm sorry now, she says. I don't see why I was ever born. And I know of at least one other person that don't understand all he knows about that, I says. I stopped in front of the schoolhouse. The bell had rung, and the last of them were just going in. You're on time for once, anyway, I says. Are you going in there and staying there, or am I coming with you and make you? She got out and banged the door. Remember what I say, I says. I mean it. Let me hear one more time that you were slipping up and down back alleys with one of them damn squirts. She turned back at it. I don't slip around, she says. I dare anybody to know anything I do. And they all know it, too, I says. Everybody in this town knows what you are, but I won't have it anymore, you hear? I don't care what you do myself, I says. But I got a position in this town, and I'm not going to have any member of my family going on like a wench. You hear me? Well, I don't care, she says. I'm bad, and I'm going to hell, and I don't care. I'd rather be in hell than anywhere where you are. If I hear one more time that you haven't been to school, you'll wish you were in hell, I says. She turned and ran on across the yard. One more time, remember, I says. She didn't look back. I went to the post office and got the mail and drove on to the store and parked. Earl looked at me when I came in. I gave him a chance to say something about my being late, but he just said, "Those cultivators have come. You better help Uncle Job put 'em up." I went on to the back, where old Job was uncrating them at the rate of about 3 bolts to the hour. "You all be working for me," I says. "Every other no-count in town eats in my kitchen." "I works to suit the man what pays me," said Nat. He says, "When I does dat, I don't leave me a whole lot of time to please other folks." He screwed up a nut. "Ain't nobody works much in this country 'cept the boll weaver nowadays," he says. "You better be glad you're not a boll weaver, waiting on those cultivators," I said. "You'd work yourself to death before you'd be ready to prevent you." "That's the truth," he says. "Boll weavers got a tough time. Work every day in the week out in the hot sun, rain or shine. Ain't got no front porch to sit on and watch the watermelons growing, and Saturday don't mean nothing at all to 'em." "Saturday wouldn't mean nothing to you either," I says, "if it depended on me to pay your wages. Get those things out of the crates now and drag 'em inside." I opened her letter first and took the check out, just like a woman, 6 days late. Yet they try to make men believe that they're capable of conducting a business. How long would a man that thought the first of the month came on the 6th last in business? And like as not, when they sent the bank statement out, she would want to know why I never deposited my salary until the 6th. Things like that never occur to a woman. I had no answer to my letter about Quentin's Easter dress. Did it arrive all right? I had no answer to the last 2 letters I wrote her, though the check in the second one was cashed with the other check. Is she sick? Let me know at once, or I'll come there and see for myself. You promised you would let me know when she needed things. I will expect to hear from you before the 10th. No, you'd better wire me at once. You are opening my letters to her. I know that as well as if I were looking at you. You'd better wire me at once about her to this address. About that time, Earl started yelling at Job, so I put them away and went over to try to put some life into him. What this country needs is labor. Let these damned trifling starve for a couple of years, then they'd see what a soft thing they have. Along toward 10 o'clock, I went up front. There was a drummer there. It was a couple of minutes to 10, and I invited him to the street to get a Coca-Cola. We got to talking about crops. "There's nothing to it," I said. "Cotton is a spectator's crop. They fill the farmer hot, full of air, and get him to raise a big crop for them to whipsaw on the market, to trim the suckers with. You think the farmer getting anything out of that except a red neck and a hump on his back? You think the man that sweats to put it into the ground gives a red cent more than a bare living?" I says. "Let them make a big crop, and it won't be worth picking. Let him make a small crop, and he won't have none enough to gin. And what for? So a bunch of damn Easterners. I'm not talking about men of the Jewish religion," I says. "I've known some of them that were fine citizens. You might be one yourself," I says. "No," he says, "I'm an American. No offense," I says. "I give every man his due, regardless of religion or anything else. I have nothing against them as individuals," I says. "It's just a race. You'll admit that they produce nothing. They follow the pioneer into a new country and sell them clothes. You're thinking of Armenians, he says, aren't you? A pioneer wouldn't have any use for new clothes. No offense, I says. I don't hold a man's religion against him. Sure, he says. I'm an American. My folks have some French blood. Why, I have a nose like this. I'm an American, all right. So am I says. Not many of us left. What I'm talking about is the fellow that sits up there in New York and trim the sucker gamblers. That's right, he says. Nothing to gambling for a poor man. There ought to be a law against it. Don't you think I'm right? I says. Yes, he says. I guess you're right. The farmer catches it coming and going. I know I'm right, I says. It's a sucker game, unless a man gets inside information from somebody that knows what's going on. I happen to be associated with some people who are right there on the ground. They have one of the biggest manipulators in New York for an advisor. Way I do it, I says. I never risk much at a time. It's the fellow that thinks he knows it all and is trying to make a killing with $3 that they're laying for. That's why they are in the business. Then it struck 10. I went up to the telegraph office. It opened up a little, just like they said. I went into the corner and took out the telegram again, just to be sure. While I was looking at it, a report came in. It was up 2 points. They were all buying. I could tell that from what they were saying, getting aboard. Like they didn't know it could go but one way. Like there was a law or something against doing anything but buying. Well, I reckon those Easterners have got to live too. But I'll be damned if it hasn't come to a pretty pass when any damn foreigner that can't make a living in the country where God put him can come to this one and make money right out of an American's pocket. If it was up 2 points, more, 4 points. But hell, they were right here and knew what was going on. And if I wasn't going to take the advice, what was I paying them $10 a month for? I went out. Then I remembered and came back and sent the wire. All well. Q writing today. Q? The operator said. Yes. I says, Q. Can't you spell Q? I just asked to be sure, he says. You send it like I wrote it, and I'll guarantee you to be sure, I says. Send it collect. What you sendin', Jason? Doc Wright said, looking over my shoulder. Is that a code message to buy? It's all right about that, I says. You boys use your own judgment. You know more about it than those New York folks do. Well, I ought to, Doc said. I saved money this year raising it at 2 cents a pound. Another report came in. It was down a point. Jason's selling, Hopkins said. Look at his face. That's all right about what I'm doing, I says. You boys followed your own judgment. Those rich New Yorkers have got to live like everybody else, I says. I went on back to the store. Earl was busy up front. I went on back to the desk and read Lorraine's letter. Dear Daddy, wish you were here. No good part is when Daddy's out of town. I miss you, sweet Daddy. I reckon she does. Last time I gave her $40. Gave it to her. I never promise a woman anything, nor let her know what I'm going to give her. That's the only way to manage them. Always keep them guessing. If you can't think of any other way to surprise them, give them a bust in the jaw. I tore it open and burned it over the spittoon. I make it a rule never to keep a scrap of paper bearing a woman's hand, and I never write them at all. Lorraine is always after me to write to her, but I says anything I forget to tell you will save till I get to Memphis again. But I says I don't mind you writing me now, and then a plain envelope. But if you ever try to call me up in the telephone, Memphis won't hold you, I says. I says when I'm up here, I'm one of the boys, but I'm not going to have any woman calling me on the telephone. Here, I says, giving her the $40. If you ever get drunk and take a notion to call me on the phone, just remember this and count 10 before you do it. When'll that be? She says. What? I says. When you're coming back, she says. I'll let you know, I says. Then she tried to buy a beer, but I wouldn't let her. Keep your money, I says. Buy yourself a dress with it. I gave the maid a 5, too. After all, like I say, money has no value. It's just the way you spend it. It don't belong to anybody. So why try to hoard it? It just belongs to the man that can get it and keep it. There's a man right here in Jefferson made a lot of money selling rotten goods to... lived in a room over the store about the size of a pig pen and did his own cooking. About 4 or 5 years ago, he was taken sick, scared the hell out of him, so that when he was up again, he joined the church and bought himself a Chinese missionary, $5,000 a year. I often think how mad he'll be if he was to die and find out there's not any heaven when he thinks about that $5,000 a year. Like I say, he'd better go on and die now and save money. When it was burned good, I was just about to shove the others into my coat when all of a sudden something told me to open Quentin's before I went home. But about that time, Earl started yelling for me up front, so I put them away and went and waited on the damned redneck while he spent 15 minutes deciding whether he wanted a 20-cent ham ring or a 35-cent one. "You better take that good one," I says. "How do you fellas ever expect to get ahead trying to work with cheap equipment?" "If this one ain't any good," he says, "why have you got it on sale?" "I didn't say it wasn't any good," I said it's not as good as that other one." "How do you know it's not?" he says. "You ever use every one of them?" "Because they don't ask 35 cents for it," I says. "That's how I know it's not as good." He held the 20-cent one in his hands, drawing it through his fingers. "I reckon I'll take this here one," he says. I offered to take it and wrap it, but he rolled it up and put it in his overalls. Then he took out a tobacco sack and finally got it untied and shook some coins out. He handed me a quarter. "That 15 cents will buy me a sack for dinner," he says. "All right," I says. "You're the doctor. But don't come complaining to me next year when you have to buy a new outfit." "I ain't making next year's crop yet," he says. Finally, I got rid of him. But every time I took that letter out, something would come up. They were all in town for the show, coming in droves to give their money to something that brought nothing to the town and wouldn't leave anything except that those grafters in the mayor's office will split among themselves. And Earl chasing back and forth like a hen in a coop, saying, "Yes, ma'am, Mr. Compson will wait on you. Jason, show this lady a churn, or a nickel's worth of screen hooks." Well, Jason likes work. I says, "No, I never had university advantages because at Harvard they teach you how to go for a swim at night without knowing how to swim, and at Shawnee they don't even teach you what water is." I says, "You might send me to the state university. Maybe I'll learn how to stop my clock with a nose spray, and then you can send Ben to the Navy," I says, "or to the cavalry anyway. They use geldings in the cavalry." That's when she sent Quentin home for me to feed, too, I says. "I guess that's right, too. Instead of me having to go way up north for a job, they sent the job down here to me, and then Mother began to cry, and I says, it's not that I have any objections to having it here. It's that any satisfaction to you, I'll quit work and nurse it myself and let you and Dilsey keep the flour barrel full of Ben. Rent him out to a sideshow. There must be folks somewhere that would pay a dime to see him." Then she cried more and kept saying, "My poor afflicted baby," and I says, "Yes, he'll be quite a help to you when he gets his growth, not being more than 1.5 times as high as me now." And she says she'd be dead soon, and then we'd all be better off. And so I says, all right, have your way. It's your grandchild, which is more than any other grandparent can say for certain. Only I says it's only a question of time. If you believe she'll do what she says and not try to see it, you fool yourself, because the first time that Mother kept on saying, "Thank God you are not a Compson, except in name, because you are all I have left now, you and Maury." And I says, well, I could spare Uncle Maury myself. And then they came and said they were ready to start. Mother stopped crying then. She pulled her veil down and went downstairs. Uncle Maury was coming out of the dining room, his handkerchief in his mouth. They kind of made a lane, and we went out the door just in time to see Dilsey driving Ben and TP back around the corner. We went down the steps and got in. Uncle Maury kept saying, poor little sister," talking about his mouth, talking around his mouth and patting Mother's hand, talking around whatever it was. "Have you got your band on?" she says. "Why don't they go on before Benjamin comes out and makes a spectacle? Poor little babe. Poor little boy. He doesn't know. He can't even realize." "There, there," Uncle Maury says, patting her hand, talking around his mouth. "It's better so. Let him be unaware of bereavement until he has to. Other women have their children to support them in times like this," Mother says. "You have Jason and me," he says. "It's so terrible to me," she says, "having the two of them like this in less than 2 years." "There, there," he says. After a while, he kind of sneaked his hand to his mouth and dropped them to the window. Then I knew what I had been smelling. Clove stems. I reckon he thought that the least he could do at Father's funeral, or maybe the sideboard thought it was still Father and tripped him up when he passed. Like I say, if he had to sell something to send Quentin to Harvard, we'd all been a damn sight better off if he'd sold that sideboard and bought himself a one-armed straitjacket with part of the money. I reckon the reason all the Compson gave out before it got to me, like Mother says, is that he drank it up. At least, I never heard of him offering to sell anything to send me to Harvard. So he kept on patting her hand and saying, "Poor little sister," patting her hand with one of the black gloves that we got the bill for 4 days later because it was the 26th, because it was the same day 1 month that Father went up there and got it and brought it home and wouldn't tell anything about where she was or anything, and Mother crying and saying, "And you didn't even see him. You didn't even try to get him to make any provision for it." And Father says, "No, she shall not touch his money, not 1 cent of it." And Mother says, "He can be forced to by law. He can prove nothing unless—" "Jason Compson," she says, "were you fool enough to tell—" "Hush, Caroline," Father says. And he sent me to help Dilsey get that old cradle out of the attic, and I says, "Well, they brought my job home tonight, because all the time we kept hoping they'd get things straightened out and he'd keep her, because Mother kept saying she would at least have enough regard for the family not to jeopardize my chance after she and Quentin had theirs." "And where else do she belong?" Dilsey said. "Who else will raise her except me? Ain't I raised every one of y'all?" "And a damn fine job you made of it," I says. "Anyway, it'll give her something to sure enough worry over now." So we carried the cradle down, and Dilsey started to set it up in her old room. Then Mother started, sure enough. "Hush, Miss Caroline," Dilsey said. "You gwine wake her up. In there," Mother says, "to be contaminated by that atmosphere. It'll be hard enough as it is with the heritage she already has." "Hush," Father says. "Don't be silly." Why ain't she gwine sleep in here?" Dilsey says. "I'm in the same room where I put her ma to bed every night of her life since she was big enough to sleep by herself." "We don't know," Mother says, "to have my own daughter cast off by her husband. Poor little innocent baby," she says, looking at Quentin. "You will never know the suffering you've caused." "Hush, Caroline," Father says. "What you want go on like that for, Jason, fur?" Dilsey says. "I've tried to protect him," Mother says. "I've always tried to protect him from it. Least I can do my best to shield her." "How sleeping in this room going to hurt her, I like to know," Dilsey says. "I can't help it," Mother says. "I know I'm just a troublesome old woman. I know that people cannot flout God's law with impunity." "Nonsense," Mother says. "Fix it in Miss Caroline's room then, Dilsey." "You can say nonsense," Mother says, "but she must never know. She must never even learn that name. Dilsey, I forbid you ever to speak that name in her hearing. If she could grow up never to know that she had a mother, I would thank God." "Don't be a fool," Father said. "I have never interfered with the ways you brought them up," Mother says, "but now I cannot stand any more. We must decide this now, tonight. Either that name is never to be spoken in her hearing, or she must go, or I will go. Take your choice." "Hush," Father says. "You're just upset. Fix it in here, Dilsey. And you's about sick, too, Dilsey says. You looks like a haunt. You get in bed and I'll fix you a toddy and see you can sleep. You sleep. I bet you ain't had a full night's sleep since you left. No, Mother says. Don't you know what the doctor says? Why, you must encourage him to drink. That's what's the matter with him now. Look at me. I suffer too, but I'm not so weak that I must kill myself with whiskey. Fiddlesticks, Father says. What do doctors know? They make their living advising people to do whatever they are not doing at the time, which is the extent of anyone's knowledge to the degenerate ape. You'll have a minister in to hold my hand next. Then Mother cried, and he went out. Went downstairs, and then I heard the sideboard. I woke up and heard him going down again. Mother had gone to sleep or something, because the house was quiet at last. He was trying to be quiet, too, because I couldn't hear him. Only the bottom of his nightshirt and his bare legs in front of the sideboard. Dilsey fixed the cradle and undressed her and put her in it. She never had waked up since he brought her in the house. She pretty near too big for it, Dilsey said. Dar now, I'll go and spread me a pallet right across the hall, so you won't need to get up in the night. I won't sleep, Mother says. You go on home. I won't mind. I'll be here to give the rest of my life to her if I can just prevent. Hush now, Dilsey says. We go and take care of her. And you go on to bed now, she says to me. You got to go to school tomorrow. So I went out. Then Mother called me back and cried on me a while. You are my only hope, she says. Every night I thank God for you. While we were waiting there for them to start, she says, thank God if he had to be taken too. It is you left me and not Quentin. Thank God you are not a Compson, because all I have left now is you and Maury. And I says, well, I could spare Uncle Maury myself. Well, he kept on patting her hand with his black glove, talking away from her. He took them off when his turn with the shovel came. He got up near the first, where they were holding the umbrellas over them, stamping every now and then and trying to kick the mud off their feet, and sticking to the shovels so they'd have to knock it off, making a hollow sound when it fell on it. And when I stepped back and opened the hack, I could see him behind a tombstone, taking another one out of a bottle. I thought he never was going to stop, because I had on my new suit, too. But it happened that there wasn't much mud on the wheels yet. Only Mother saw it and says, I don't know when you'll ever have another one. And Uncle Maury says, now, don't you worry at all. You'll have me to depend on, always. And we have. Always. The fourth letter was from him. But there wasn't any need to open it. I could have written it myself, or recited it to her from memory, adding $10 just to be safe. But I had a hunch about that other letter. I just felt that it was about time she was up to some of her tricks again. She got pretty wise after that first time. She found out pretty quick that I was a different breed of cat from Father. When they began to get filled up toward the top, Mother started crying, sure enough, so Uncle Maury got in with her and drove off. He says you can come in with somebody. They'll be glad to give you a lift. I'll have to take your mother on, and I thought about saying, yes, you ought to brought 2 bottles instead of just 1. Only I thought about where we were, so I let them go on. Little they cared how wet I got, because when Mother could have a whale of a time being afraid I was taking pneumonia. Well, I got to thinking about that and watching them throwing dirt into it, slapping it on another like they were making mortar or something, or building a fence, and I began to feel sort of funny, and so I decided to walk around a while. I thought that if I went toward town, they'd catch up and be trying to make me get in one of them, so I went on back toward the graveyard. I got under some cedars, where the rain didn't come much, only dripping now and then, where I could see when they got through and went away. After a while, they were all gone, and I waited a minute and came out. I had to follow the path to keep out of the wet grass, so I didn't see her until I was pretty near there, standing there in a black cloak, looking at the flowers. I knew who it was right off, before she turned and looked at me and lifted up her veil. "Hello, Jason," she says, holding out her hand. We shook hands. "What are you doing here?" I says. "I thought you promised her you wouldn't come back here. I thought you had more sense than that." "Yes," she said. She looked at the flowers again. There must have been $50 worth. Somebody had put one bunch on Quentin's. "You did?" she says. "I'm not surprised, though," I says. "I wouldn't put anything past you. You don't mind anybody. You don't give a damn about anybody." "Oh," she says, "that job." She looked at the grave. "I'm sorry about that, Jason." "I bet you are," he says. "You'll talk mighty meek now, but you needn't have come back. There's not anything left. Ask Uncle Maury if you don't believe me." "I don't want anything," she says. She looked at the grave. "Why didn't they let me know?" she says. "I just happened to see it in the paper on the back page. Just happened to." I didn't say anything. We stood there, looking at the grave, and then I got to thinking about when we were little, and one thing and another, and I got to feeling funny again, kind of mad or something, thinking about now we'd have Uncle Maury around and house all the time, running things like the way he left me to come home in the rain by myself. I says, "A fine lot you care sneaking in here soon as he's dead, but it won't do you any good. Don't think that you can take advantage of this to come sneaking back. If you can't stay on the horse you've got, you'll have to walk," I says. "We don't even know your name at that house," I says. "Do you know that? We don't even know you with him and Quentin," I says. "Do you know that?" "I know it," she says. "Jason," she says, looking at the grave, "if you'll fix it so I can see her a minute, I'll give you $50. "You haven't got $50, I says. "Will you?" she says, not looking at me. "Let's see," I says. "I don't believe you got $50. I could see where her hands were moving under her cloak. Then she held her hand out. Damn, if it wasn't full of money. I could see 2 or 3 yellow ones. "Does he still give you money?" "Does he still give you money?" I says. "How much does he send you?" "I'll give you 100, she says. "Will you?" "Just a minute," I says. "And just like I say, I wouldn't have her know it for $1,000. "Yes," she says, "just like you say, do it. Just so I see her a minute. I won't beg or do anything. I'll go right away. Give me the money," I says. "I'll give it to you afterward," she says. "Don't you trust me?" I says. "No," she says. "I know you. I grew up with you." "You're a fine one to talk about trusting people," I says. "Well," I says, "I got to get on out of the rain. Goodbye." I made to go away. "Jason," she says. I stopped. "Yes," I says. "Hurry up, I'm getting wet." "Well, all right," she says. "Here." There wasn't anybody in sight. I went back, took the money. She still held on to it. "You'll do it?" she says, looking at me from under the veil. "You promise?" "Let go," I says. "You want somebody to come along and see us?" She let go. I put the money in my pocket. "You'll do it, Jason?" she says. "I wouldn't ask you if there was any other way." "You're damn right there's no other way," I says. "Sure, I'll do it. I said I would, didn't I? Only you'll have to do it just like I say now." "Yes," she says. "I will." So I told her where to be and went to the livery stable. I hurried and got there just as they were unhitching the hack. I asked if they had paid for it yet, and he said no, and I said Mrs. Compson forgot something and wanted it again, so they let me take it. Mink was driving. I bought him a cigar. So we drove around until it began to get dark on the back streets where they wouldn't see him. Then Mink said he'd have to take the team on back, and so I said I'd buy him another cigar, and so we drove into the lane, and I went across the yard to the house. I stopped in the hall until I could hear Mother and Uncle Maury upstairs. Then I went on back to the kitchen. She and Ben were there with Dilsey. I said Mother wanted her, and I took her into the house. I found Uncle Maury's raincoat and put it around her and picked her up and went back to the lane and got it in the hack. I told Mink to drive to the depot. He was afraid to pass the stable. So we had to go to the back way, and I saw her standing on the corner under the light, and I told Mink to drive close to the walk, and when I said go on, to give a team a bat. Then I took the raincoat off of her and held her to the window, and Caddy saw her and sort of jumped forward. "Hit 'em, Mink," I says. And Mink gave them a cut, and we went past her like a fire engine. "Now get on that train like you promised," I says. I could see her running after us through the back window. "Hit 'em again," I says. "Let's get on home." When we turned the corner, she was still running. And so I counted the money again that night and put it away, and I didn't feel so bad. I says I reckon that'll show you. I reckon you'll know now that you can't beat me out of a job and get away with it. Never occurred to me she wouldn't keep her promise and take that train. But I didn't know much about them then. I didn't have any more sense then to believe what they said, because the next morning, damn if she didn't walk right into the store. Only she had sense enough to wear the veil and not to speak to anybody. It was Saturday morning, because I was at the store and she came right on back to the front desk where I was, walking fast. "Liar," she said. "Liar." "You crazy," I says. "What do you mean, coming in here like this?" She started in, but I shut her off. I said, "You already cost me one job. Do you want me to lose this one too? If you've got anything to say to me, I'll meet you somewhere after dark." "What have you got to say to me?" I says. "Didn't I do everything I said? I said, see her in a minute, didn't I? Well, didn't you?" She just stood there, looking at me, shaking like an ague fit, her hands clenched. "I did just what I said I would," I says. "You're the one that lied. You promised to take that train. Didn't you? Didn't you promise? If you think you can get that money back, just try it," I says. "If it'd been $1,000, you'd still owe me after a risk I took. And if I see or hear you're still in town after number 17 runs," I says, "I'll tell Mother and Uncle Maury. Then hold your breath until you see her again." She just stood there, looking at me, twisting her hands together. "Damn you," she says. "Damn you." "Sure," I says. "That's all right, too. Mind what I say now. After number 17, and I tell them." After she was gone, I felt better. I says I reckon you'll think twice before you deprive me of a job that was promised me. I was a kid then. I believed folks when they said they'd do things. I've learned better since. Besides, like I say, I guess I don't need any man's help to get along. I can stand on my own feet like I always have. Then all of a sudden I thought of Dilsey and Uncle Maury. I thought how she'd get around Dilsey and that Uncle Maury would do anything for $10. And there I was. Couldn't even get away from the store to protect my own. And there I was. Couldn't even get away from the store to protect my own mother. Like she says, if one of you had to be taken, thank God it was you left me. I can depend on you. And I says, well, I don't reckon I'll ever get far enough from the store to get out of your reach. Somebody's got to hold on to what little we have, I reckon. So as soon as I got home, I fixed Dilsey. I told Dilsey she had leprosy, and I got the Bible and read where a man's flesh rotted off, and I told her that if she ever looked at her or Ben or Quentin, they'd catch it too. So I thought I had everything all fixed, until the day when I came home and found Ben bellowing, raising hell, and nobody could quiet him. Mother said, well, get him the slipper then. Dilsey made out she didn't hear. Mother said it again, and I says I'd go. I couldn't stand that damn noise. Like I say, I stand lots of things. I don't expect much from them, but if I have to work all day long in a damn store, damn if I don't think I deserve a little peace and quiet to eat dinner in. So I says I'd go. And Dilsey says quick, Jason. Well, like a flash, I knew what was up, but just to make sure, I went and got the slipper and brought it back, and just like I thought, when he saw it, you'd thought we were killing him. So I made Dilsey own up. Then I told Mother. We had to take her up to bed then, And after things got quieted down a little, I put the fear of God into Dilsey, as much as you can into a. That is. That's the trouble with servants. When they've been with you for a long time, they get so full of self-importance that they're not worth a damn. Think they run the whole family. I like to know what's the hurt in letting that poor child see her own baby, Dilsey says. If Mr. Jason was still here, he'd be different. I know. Only Mr. Jason's not here, I says. I know you won't pay me any mind, but I reckon you'll do what Mother says. You keep on worrying her like this until you get her into the graveyard, too. Then you can fill the whole house full of ragtag and bobtail. But what did you want to let that damn idiot see her for? You's a cold man, Jason. If man you is, she says. I thank the Lord I got my heart, more heart than that, even if it is black. At least I'm a man enough to keep that flour barrel full, I says. And if you do that again, you won't be eating out of it either. So the next time I told her that if she tried Dilsey again, Mother was going to fire Dilsey and send Ben to Jackson and take Quentin and go away. She looked at me for a while. There wasn't any streetlight close and I couldn't see her face much, but I could feel her looking at me. When we were little, when she'd get mad and couldn't do anything about it, her upper lip would begin to jump. Every time it jumped, it would leave a little more of her teeth showing, and all the time she'd be as still as a post, not a muscle moving except her lip jerking higher and higher up her teeth. But she didn't say anything. She just said, "All right, how much?" "Well, if one look through a hack window was worth 100, I says. So after that, she behaved pretty well. Only one time she asked to see a statement of the bank account. "I know they have them Mother's endorsements on them," she says, "but I want to see the bank statement. I want to see myself where those checks go." "That's a Mother's private business," I says. "If you think you have any right to pry into her private affairs, I'll tell her you believe those checks are being misappropriated, and you want an audit because you don't trust her." She didn't say anything. Or move. I could hear her whispering, "Damn you, damn you, damn you." "Say it out loud," I says. "I don't reckon it's any secret what you and I think of one another. Maybe you want the money back," I says. Okay. It is not the end of the chapter. However, we're not going to read for another 2 hours. which is how long it says that it's going to take until we get to the end of it. So instead, let's stop here. I'm even going to mark it so that we know where we stopped. We'll stop here and we'll pick up next time. As always, whether you lurk, whether you chat, I 1000% appreciate you. And I 1000% appreciate your support. If I don't see you next time, I hope to see you very soon. Bye.